Welcome back to the Team to Be Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. Before I get into today's episode, just want to thank everybody for supporting the podcast and the YouTube channel. If you guys do enjoy the content, I'm pushing to 2,000 subscribers, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So for today's episode, I want to talk about Sam Amick from The Athletic. He was on a podcast called The TK Show, and he brought up that the Golden State Warriors are potentially interested in trading for Jimmy Butler. So we saw earlier this summer there was an article or a report stating that the Golden State Warriors could be interested or linked to Jimmy Butler if he was one going to request a trade, or two, if the Miami Heat were going to be willing to move on from Jimmy Butler and actively seek a trade. And this was all based on Jimmy Butler's extension at the beginning of the offseason. So Jimmy Butler was eligible for a extension on July 7th, and Jimmy Butler's camp and team said they were going to ask for that extension before that date. And then Pat Riley at the end of year press conference basically said, hey, we don't need to give Jimmy an extension this season. We'll take a wait and see approach. He needs to be available and he needs to be healthy before we can make that decision. So we know Jimmy Butler is under contract with the Miami Heat next season. He's going to be making roughly $46 or $48 million. And then in the 2025-2026 season, he's going to have a player option. And it sounds like from sources that Jimmy is going to become a free agent. He wants to stay with the Miami Heat. He wants to win a championship, apparently, with the Miami Heat. Loves living in Miami, of course. And he said, okay, fine. I'm going to bet on myself, and he's going to be in a contract year. He's going to need to be healthy, and he's going to need to be available, and he's going to need to try in the regular season in order to secure his financial future, his last, 2 to 3 year contract. He is turning 35, I believe, by the beginning of training camp. And so he has slowed down slightly, but we know that Jimmy Butler is still capable of being a all-star level type player when he's healthy, and especially the biggest value with Jimmy Butler over the past 5 seasons with this Miami Heat team has been playoff Jimmy. So his ability to step up, turn it up, especially offensively and defensively in the playoffs, helped the Miami Heat get to 3 Eastern Conference Finals, 2 finals. Ultimately, has not won the championship with the Miami Heat due to different reasons. Injuries was a big one, of course, whether he was hurt himself with that ankle, or not having Tyler Hero, or having Kyle Lowry and Bam and other folks miss games. Dragic, you name it. There's been a ton. But either way, Jimmy, again, still capable, still a good player, like 21 points per game last season, shot 50% from the field. He had 5.3 rebounds per game, 5 assists, played, only 65 games, I believe. So the biggest issue with Jimmy Butler is he's never played more than like 65 games with the Miami Heat. And so who knows what's going to happen if Jimmy is going to have a good season next year. And who knows what's going to happen with the team dynamics. The Miami Heat didn't make a ton of offseason moves. They basically improved their team via draft and through undrafted players. They only added Alec Burks through free agency because they had no space. They were not able to sign and trade people or players like DeMar DeRozan because they're a first apron team, and that's part of the penalty. Is you're not allowed to do any sign and trades as a first apron team. So DeMar DeRozan, said Miami was one of the teams that he wanted to possibly join as a free agent. But again, like I said, we were a first apron team, so we're not going to actually be able to get him, and we had no cap space to sign him outright as a free agent. So, anyway, Jimmy Butler, who knows what's going to happen again next season, because possibly if the Miami Heat start off really slow and go, let's say 10-20 or so, or 10-25, there is a possibility that the Miami Heat do trade Jimmy Butler by the February trade deadline. Who knows? But anyway, the Warriors have been linked again to the Miami Heat, and Sam Amick basically said he thinks that the Warriors front office made some calls to the Miami Heat this summer to see if Jimmy was available. And I know Pat Riley in this press conference said that, this team, our ceiling is Jimmy Butler. Like, as the Heat go, that's wherever Jimmy takes us, right? Like, he is our needle mover, and they said they don't want to trade him. And so Sam was basically saying he thinks that the Warriors have made calls because right now the West has gotten better. It's getting younger, but also these younger teams are getting playoff experience adding veterans to their team, like the Houston Rockets have added Fred VanVleet and Brooks and a few other players. They have cap space also to sign other free agents. Obviously, the Thunder are elevating. The T Wolves with Ant Edwards are becoming a threat, and so the Golden State Warriors, just like the Lakers, are an older team. They're a play-in team, and they haven't really made any significant moves this offseason. And I think adding Jimmy Butler to Steph Curry, who's still a top 3, 5 player, 3 through 5 range, in my opinion, still one of the best players, best point guard in the NBA right now. Still has a lot in the tank. We saw what he did in the Olympics this summer. And so he needs someone that can help him. And Jimmy Butler would be a good fit because he doesn't need to be the focal point on offense, right? Like, so Jimmy will love to play next to Steph, who would obviously be the one who they run the offense through, but Jimmy Butler would give them that another 20-point scorer who's a two-way player and the potential to contend. So I don't want Jimmy Butler to be traded to the Golden State Warriors. I want Jimmy Butler to have another shot with this Miami Heat team. Pray to the basketball gods that we can be healthy one season, which is not going to happen because it's never happens with this Miami Heat team. We're already injured now. Terry Rozier is still not ready. Nikola Jovic had a small fracture back in June, before the Olympics. So we'll see. But I want Jimmy Butler on this team. This is our last chance, our last stab at the Jimmy Butler build at the core with Jimmy, Tyler, and Bam. This is probably the last season again because Jimmy Butler is going to be a free agent and he's going to test the free agent market. We'll see what happens, but I prefer we don't trade Jimmy Butler. But if we do, I'm not going to be mad either as long as we can get a lot of draft capital and reset. So it would be a soft rebuild because we still would have Bam Adebayo, obviously, Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, Jovic, etc., Kelal Ware. But if we did trade Jimmy Butler to the Warriors, I would hope we would be able to get like 2 to 3 first round picks, maybe 3. My boy Martel made a video earlier today talking about this, and he said that Mikal Bridges, who is nowhere near the same player as Jimmy Butler, has not accomplished nearly what Jimmy has. Obviously, he's a lot younger, but still, he's not in the same conversation as Jimmy Butler. And he got 5 first round picks. And so if he can get 5 first round picks, Jimmy should 100% be able to get us at least 2 minimum. But I think 3 picks would be great because the Miami Heat have only 1 tradable first round pick. So we need assets before we can make any future moves and trades to build around Bam Adebayo. So get at least 2 to 3 first round picks, and you want to get at least 1 to 2 young players. The Warriors are definitely going to try to just pawn off only Moody and some other filler. They don't want to get rid of Brandon Podziemski, or I always say his name wrong, but they don't want to get rid of Pods. They definitely don't want to get rid of Kuminga, but he is requesting for a max contract. And so with Steph Curry getting his extension, you have Draymond Green obviously in the mix. Like if he gets that max, then they're not going to have any other cap space to sign other good players to surround Draymond, Steph, and Kuminga. So then they're kind of stuck as a play-in team, I think. But if you're able to trade Kuminga to the Miami Heat, I would just take that alone. Kuminga, 2 first-round picks, call it a day. I'll take that all day long for Jimmy Butler. Then you get another all-star player, two-way player next to Steph Curry, and then that I think puts the Golden State Warriors in the conversation as a contender in the West as a top 4 team if they add Jimmy Butler. But again, it's regular season Jimmy. I don't know how much he's going to try, so he's going to have to rely on Steph and Draymond and other players to carry the load. But we'll see. It's intriguing to see that the Warriors are interested in Jimmy Butler. I think it would be a good pairing with Steph Curry. But again, I ultimately want Jimmy Butler to win a championship with the Miami Heat. I want him to finish and accomplish his goal of winning with the Heat before he retires or gets traded or signs with another team. So we shall see what happens. But let me know in the comments what you think about Sam's comments on that podcast about the Golden State Warriors calling the Miami Heat this summer and potentially being interested in trading for him.